Hello. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Let's see what is going on. If you are watching us live, let me know if you can hear us. Give me a thumbs up, click like, love, haha, wow. I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes to join us. Usual thing, if the audio is good, let me know. If there's a problem with the audio, let me know. If you can also click share and write a little message saying why you should watch this video, and also if there's someone you think would benefit from watching, just tag them in the comments below. I'm going to give you all a couple of minutes to log in. Remember, this is your opportunity to ask any questions that have come up this week. It's that other weekly format. So today I'm going to be covering a few nutrition myths. We're probably going to run for about 20 minutes, but if you have any questions, then you can pop them in and I'll cover those questions live for you right now at the end of this 20 minutes. I'm going to give you all a few minutes to join in, to click like, to click love, haha, wow. All of the usual things. I've got my usual setup here as well. I've got, oh, are we still going? Are we still all right? I think we're okay. Fingers crossed we're still running. I think we're still running. Yeah, so usual thing, tag someone in the feed that you think would be interested in watching. If you have a question, write that in the comments right now. I'll get to your questions after I've done our few nutrition myths to kick off our day. I've been coaching this morning. What have you guys been up to? Have you got your coffee? Remember, I can't see you. I can only see you if you write hi, pop hi in the comments. I would love to say hi to you. And with all of our live Q&As, you can watch it at any point in time. Just head to our page and you'll be able to watch it. Very few of you in today, actually. Did you all go out and enjoy Super Saturday yesterday? Is that why? I will get going in roughly 30 seconds. If you are watching, just write those two letters, pop hi down. It allows me to know that everything's working as well. I'm going to pop this up here for you as well, so you should see the subject of the day. And also, actually, as this pops up on your screen, it will be really interesting. If you type a myth that you have heard, something that you have heard, down in this box, it should pop up for me and I can try and answer that myth for you as well. So there are a couple of you online with us live. Thank you very much for joining. Ian, good morning, Ian. How are you, Ian? So you should be able to see the box there at the bottom of your screen which says common nutrition myths. I'm going to be covering those topics for you today, but if you write something in there that you've heard, you want to know whether that's a myth, I'll answer it for you. I've got a little list of myths over here that I'm going to run through. So we're going to do this for about 15 minutes or so. A little bit of key nutrition content for you that you can take away and kind of disband those myths with your friends, your family, like when you're at the pub maybe now. Now we're free to go to pubs. Please do so safely and carefully. But now that you are able to do so, maybe this is the opportunity to educate your friends. So first myth, the first thing that we have is this thing around eggs, egg consumption, and there's a few aspects to eggs being healthy or unhealthy for you. The first aspect is we need to consider a lot of things around egg consumption, particularly in the UK, were reliant on salmonella advice. So at the time, there was an issue with safe egg consumption, and this was before the Lion stamp came in, and that they were carriers for bacteria, basically. This is now in our past, really. Realistically, we have moved beyond this, and the risks associated with raw egg consumption is a lot lower. as a result of widespread changes in farming, basically, and the kind of regulations around eggs. So that's the first thing that we can move past. Eggs are generally much, much safer than they were. I think it was the 80s, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was around the 80s. Then the next thing is that there's a limit to how many eggs you can consume in a day. Interesting study, like there's a lot of recommendations amongst nutritionists and dietitians at the time, who weren't very well read perhaps, who were suggesting that you should only, it was something like 3 eggs a week, and then they were like, oh no, actually now it's 7 eggs a week. And there was a really interesting study which said, right, we're going to feed someone, and I think it was 70 eggs in a week. So 10 eggs per day, whole eggs, not just whites or yolks, whole eggs, to see if there are any negative effects. So we're talking cholesterol, basically cardiometabolic issues. And there were none. They had no changes to health biomarkers. The only change was that they had increased protein consumption, which was a positive thing. Really, really interesting study. There's also been the suggestion that the inclusion of foods with exogenous cholesterol, so basically eating cholesterol, reduced your own production of cholesterol, which is a positive thing. So actually more beneficial than the thing that those dietitians and nutritionists were concerned about in the first place. So there's no kind of realistic upper number of consumption of eggs. It's more about working towards your calorie goal and also considering your total content of your meal. So do you need to be consuming that many eggs to fit your protein target, for example, or your fat target? Overall health is heavily reliant on those main factors. Then, egg whites or egg yolks. This is linked really to that issue of cholesterol, and people basically think, oh, you should only have the egg white. Why on earth would you only have the egg white? The egg white doesn't have as much of the good stuff as the egg yolk. So if it's down to preference, fine, no problem whatsoever. But if you're talking about health, there is no negative to consuming the egg yolk. There are lots of companies which jumped onto this kind of bodybuilding bro science of just having egg whites, and you know that was leaner protein. Yes, it is more concentrated protein effectively by having the egg white, but you're actually missing out on a lot of the good benefits of an egg by not having the egg yolk. So just alter your total daily intake, but have the whole egg. That makes a lot more sense. Unless you're making meringues, and in which case, if you're making meringues, you pretty much need to be just using the whites, I'm assured. Morning, Claire. How are you, Claire? So, Claire, if you are just joining us, Claire, you can write in the myths there. If you've heard a particular nutrition myth and you would like it answering, it should pop up on my screen. I'm going through a few. That's eggs done, basically. Ah, Claire, you have done it already. Cool. Let's pop this up. Boom. Display. Hopefully that comes on your screen. If it doesn't, I'm going to read it out just in case. Claire says, yeah, already done, thank you. Claire says, carbs are bad, remove them in order to lose weight. Only consume a small portion 15 minutes prior or immediately after exercise. Cool. So this was on one of my lists of myths to cover. So no, carbohydrates aren't bad, and you don't need to drop them in order to lose weight. As Claire will know, because Claire's on the 4 weeks, 4 kilos group. It's popped up for me, that's cool. Hopefully you guys can see that as well. But basically, the only rule for losing weight is a calorie deficit. So you only need to reduce the amount that you're consuming and increase the amount that you're burning to lose weight. Carbohydrates have no active function, no direct functioning in terms of energy balance. The thing that we find with carbohydrates is twofold. First of all, that they are yummy. Basically, thanks Claire for letting me know it's there. They are basically really, really, really compelling to eat loads large volumes and eat more and more and more. And what do you find happens? You actually find that you've just eaten more calories, and that's why you might find that you increase your weight when you consume carbohydrates. The other aspect here is that a carbohydrate, so glycogen, is basically bonded to water. So 1 gram of carbohydrate, 3 grams of water means that you see this increase in weight. Now, we always try to educate people that in the first week of weight loss, they will probably notice a vast amount of weight is lost. And that's pretty much just due to reducing this weight content, water weight content. The same thing happens on a weekend if you consume more carbohydrates on a weekend, like most of us probably do, more water because of the excess carbohydrate. So Monday isn't a true reflection. That's why I always get people I work with to weigh in over 3 days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday comes, and Wednesday is the true weight. In terms of before and after exercise, excellent for performance. So really good to consume a bit of carbohydrate before long endurance activities, so 60 minutes plus, and really good for refueling after exercise in the hour, 2 hours, 3 hours after training. But in terms of actually being the only times to consume them, no. What is interesting, and this isn't a myth, this has just popped into my head and I thought I'd say it anyway, is that when we're dieting, we can consume high carbohydrate and in pretty much zero fat options around exercise and basically get away with it because we're not storing that carbohydrate, as long as it's like pure glucose, so like a sweet, and as long as we're not going really high calorie surplus, then it works. Very interesting stuff there. All right, remember, if you have any questions or any myths you'd like busting, pop your questions in the comments, pop your myths in this part up here. I'm going to move on to my next one. I think I can get rid of it. I don't know, maybe. Claire, I like Wednesday's weight. Monday was a bit pants. Yeah, I'm with you, Claire. Always just let it roll into Wednesday. Don't panic, it will happen. Usual thing, if you can tag a friend in this video, if you can share it on your newsfeed, that would mean the world to me. It's obviously because it's Super Saturday, what a rubbish thing that was, but anyway, Super Saturday yesterday. We've got only a few of you joining us live, but that means the world to me that you have taken the time out of your day. So our next myth that we're going to look at is salt being bad for you. Now, a lot of this came from America regarding salt. What's the difference in the American diet from the British diet? Well, basically, lots more processed foods, lots more availability of those foods in larger portions. That means incredibly high content of salt. Also, these foods have lots of salt in highly processed food, and highly processed food is the part which is linked to cardiometabolic issues. Now, salt on its own isn't really much of a problem. When we get an imbalance between salt and potassium, so sodium and potassium, that can be an issue. Hyponatremia, so incredibly low amounts of salt, can be fatal though. So when people try and remove all salt out of their diet, they sweat, they consume too much water, they're effectively drowning. This can be absolutely critical to health. And because we need salt for the heart to produce its electric beat, basically, you can cause yourself cardiac issues by consuming too little salt. Interestingly, unless you have an underlying or pre-existing issue around hypertension, by taking salt, sprinkle it on your potato, your chips, whatever, just a normal person's amount, that doesn't raise your points on the hypertension scale. It doesn't even raise it 1 point. It's only when there are pre-existing conditions that you need to be a little bit more aware of. So salt isn't generally a bad thing, and we need to be really wary, particularly if we're exercising, particularly if we're in hot climates where we're consuming lots of liquids, that our salt levels actually aren't too low to prevent hypertension, to prevent a cardiac issue occurring. It's really, really important. So that's 2 of the myths done. Claire's one there as well. We're going to aim to get 5 done within the next 10 minutes, okay? So 2 down, bonus 1 done. Bread. Absolutely love bread. Bread is bad for you. You should have wholemeal bread. That's a myth. Bread is not bad for you. The issue with bread is pretty much like the issue with carbohydrate. It's our love for it, or at least my love for bread. Absolutely love a crusty white loaf. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. The issue basically exists from when we just can't stop consuming it and we actually have 17 slices of bread in a day. It's probably not going to be good at any point in our life to consume 17 portions of something in a single day, is it? Realistically. It just tastes so good. And then if you think that you combine that bread with a source of fat on top, so your calories are just going up and up and up, and then let's put some glucose directly on top of the fat, which is on top of the carbohydrate, and then you've just got loads and loads of calories you're consuming. So realistically, it's just about the overindulgence. Now, white bread being bad, that's a sentence you want to say after Super Saturday, isn't it? Being worse for you than wholemeal bread isn't really a thing. Yes, there is a difference in the amount of processing, but largely after, or in the later stage of production, the bread now is enriched, basically fortified, added vitamins and minerals, so there's very little difference between wholemeal and white bread, but white bread certainly isn't the thing that's going to kill you. On top of that, the fibre content is pretty much the only difference between those two, and very often the fibre content in the wholemeal bread is only slightly more than what's in the white bread. So there isn't a world of difference, is what I'm saying, between the 2 items. The main issue here is in the volume and the additional things that we complement that bread with. So that's myth 3. I think that's a world record for me. I've done 1 myth in 3 minutes, and coincidentally it was myth 3. If you have a question after I've done these 5 myths, because we're going to be off at 12 o'clock today, I'm not overrunning, I'm not going to keep you here. If you have a question that you want answering, make sure you write it in the comments. Right, next myth here. This is a really, really good one. I like this one a lot. Fresh food is more nutritious than frozen food. How many of you have basically seen, oh, you got to stock up your fridge with really fresh produce, and frozen stuff is where it's basically degraded? That's not true. Actually, it can be even the opposite. If you consider the amount of time it takes to get from farming, flown from wherever to England, for example, a tomato, picked really underripe. Is that underripe the right word? Pre-ripe? Don't know. But basically picked early, so it's not ready, sprayed with a chemical to make it then react and go red. Doesn't taste very nice. That's why they don't taste very nice, because they're not ready basically to be picked. And then it arrives in your kitchen, 5 days after this occurred, or whatever many days it has occurred. Is that actually better than the frozen produce, which is frozen within an hour of being picked and then arrives frozen? No, because the freezing process occurs so quickly that it actually maintains most of the molecular structure and most of the vitamin content in there. There will be a small amount of degradation from being frozen and then to being ready on your plate. But there is no real difference between frozen and fresh, and sometimes frozen actually has more nutrient content because of the process either has gone through. The most important thing here really is consuming those portions of fruit and veg, and this is the extra little bit towards this myth, is that basically the 5-a-day rule isn't 5 a day. It was designed by the Australians to be 9 a day. They looked at 9 a day and said, no one's going to do 9 a day, we'll do 7 a day. The British then looked at the Australians saying they're doing 7 a day, no one in Britain's going to do 7 a day, so we'll do 5 a day. And then some of us basically say, oh, at least I hit 3 of my 5. and then suddenly we're at a third of what it actually should be. So, myth, 5 a day doesn't exist, it's 9 a day, but make it attainable. Here's another one from Claire, brilliant. I like this. Myth, butter is better than margarine as it's not full of additives or artificial ingredients. Claire, you are correct-ish. So butter, actual completely natural butter, is advantageous to margarine, margarine being vegetable fat. So when you actually heat vegetable fat, it alters its chemical structure to something which is similar to hydrogenated fat. Hydrogenated fat, not saturated fat, hydrogenated fat is the only fat which is clinically linked to cancer and cardiovascular disease. Interestingly, hydrogenated fat is banned in certain states in America. If America are banning some kind of food source, then you know it's extreme. I think it's in New York where you basically can't have any produce with it. Unfortunately, mainstream brands like on the high street that make sandwiches and pasties and those kind of things, which you can guess, still allow those, or still did 2 years ago. Maybe they've changed their produce process, but still did allow hydrogenated fat to appear in their foods. So butter is better for you because it has all of the full fat content. So full dairy sources are very, very, very healthy for you and are a good option to choose over margarine and those kind of spreads. It spreads because it basically has been altered. So useful. Thank you very much, Claire, for that extra one there. My myth number 4 to get to. Food is better than supplements. Oh, he didn't just say it. No, I am not a pro-supplement person, but I'm not an anti-supplement person. Look at the word. It is supplement, which means in addition to support. So basically, it is there to support your food intake. But do not confuse something being a whole food source being better for you than a supplement. It basically comes down to the way in which we consume these things and the thing it's bound to. So sometimes stuff like folate has a lower bioavailability, so our body uses it not as efficiently, shall I say, and therefore the supplement folic acid is much better for us. Sometimes we simply can't gather enough from the food source in a manageable way, and therefore we have to supplement it. So vitamin D, for example, vitamin D3. Sometimes we have a change in our diet, so if we're vegan or vegetarian, we're not going to be getting enough vitamin B12, so we need to supplement it. Don't think of supplements being a really evil thing, and also don't think of them of being incredibly magic pill containing things. Just treat them as part of your diet. If you are low in something, you will need to consume it. Perhaps it is very expensive to do that. So whey protein, not really a supplement these days, it's just a food source. But whey protein, realistically, is just a very cost-efficient way of increasing protein content. Loads of people will tell you, oh no, it's not, but they don't understand. Science. Actually, I'm just going to leave it there. It's just really frustrating when people say that, and then you say, okay, explain leucine threshold to me then, please, for MPS, and then they're like, huh? That's why things like whey protein actually are cost-effective. Again, I'm not a massive supplement hen. That's just something useful to know. So that was 4. Number 5, we have 5 minutes left on the clock. So if you have any questions, now is the time to do so. Tag a friend in this video, share it on your feed, hit like, love, wow. We want everyone to basically receive this kind of content, educational content, underpinned with science, known from a reliable source, a reliable face like this. Shaved my head and everything. Right, I've got a few here that I had. Wasn't sure which ones to go for. This one. I like this one. To lose fat, you shouldn't eat after 6 p.m. Wow. What a load of rubbish. And so many professionals still spout this. saying that you shouldn't consume food or you shouldn't consume carbohydrates after 6 p.m. One thing matters. I'm banging on about it. But basically, it's total calories. That's what it is. Total calories that actually matter. So creating a calorie deficit is what matters, and it doesn't matter if you consume all of your calories at 9 p.m, then you will still be in a calorie deficit as long as you are in a calorie deficit. The same as if you consumed all of those calories at 4 p.m. Consider the impact on your sleep by eating so late, but other than that, no, there is no kind of science to support that, oh, it's because you're going to bed with a full stomach and therefore you're not burning those calories. If you have an excess amount of calories, you will gain weight no matter what. If you have a deficit in calories, so fewer calories coming in than what you are burning, you will lose weight. It is simple as that. It's just not what people want to hear, and it's not exciting as such kind of myths to keep people tuning in and doing stuff for them. If you've heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, he says something really interesting. He says he gets a lot of stick from people saying, oh, your advice, it's the same advice each time. You never say anything new. And he's like, his response is, good, that's great. Because I'm not making stuff up to make money. I'm basically saying my advice is what works. We just need to hear it again and again and again. We know if we want something, we have to work hard for it. The same with dieting, basically. We know actually how it occurs. It's the same principles. We just don't like hearing it always because it's really hard. No one's saying it isn't hard. It's just the same principle applies. So if you haven't checked out Gary Vaynerchuk, openly admits that he's probably not the most liked person when you first listen to him. A few months later, really interesting, really educational. I had a sixth myth, which, well, I've got loads of myths I've written down here, but a sixth myth which I actually want to include because we've got 2 minutes left on the clock. And this is eating small and regular raises your metabolism. Metabolism is basically, I said that weird, didn't I? Your metabolism is something that is a little bit confusing. There's a lot going on there. You can have hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, but other than that, there isn't a massive difference in an adult's metabolism without those two medical conditions, and those are actual clinical conditions that need to be addressed with medication. However, there isn't really a difference in eating loads of small amounts of food, so basically small and frequent eating to spike your metabolism, as opposed to eating a bolus amount of food per day. Interestingly, there's been a lot of research on this area, and it actually comes down to total food content which causes this. So we know carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram, we know protein have 4 calories per gram, and we know fat has 9 calories per gram. And it's actually just the amount of food that we consume, formed of these different macronutrients they're called, that contribute to the change in your metabolism. So it's not about how often you're eating, it's actually just about total content of food. So if you had 100 grams of food, which I hope you have more, but if you had 100 grams of food split between 5 meals, say, so 20 grams per meal, you would have the exact same impact on your metabolism as having the 100 grams in one sitting that day. That's it. What is interesting is the thermic effect of food, so basically the slight increase in temperature to burn calories. It's not really that noticeable, but protein does have the highest thermic effect of food out of the 3 macronutrients. So basically it increases your fat burning ever so slightly. But in terms of using that as a dieting strategy, don't, just make sure you keep your protein elevated. It's 12:01. I wanted to get through 5. I got through 6 myths, 30 minutes there. Right, I'm going to give you all 60 seconds. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments and I will come to you. Other than that, we have done it. 6 nutrition myths. If you think people are falling for these myths, or if you know someone who's asked a question about them before, tag them in this post or share this post with them, share the post on their newsfeed, whatever you need to do. If that has been useful, please, please, please click like, love, ha, and wow. I'm going to close this bit down here. Take that out. That should disappear from your screens. I'm going to give you these 60 seconds. Andy and Zana, how are you guys doing? If you have any questions, please write them in the comments. Next week we'll be back to the question and answer format. So we're alternating between this educational bit with the option for questions afterwards, and then just question and answer each week. I like this format because it means I get to do a little bit of teaching. Honestly think that was the least amount I've ever got on to a tangent. Most efficient I've ever been with that. I'm very proud of myself. No questions yet. I'll give you another 30 seconds. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you click share. It makes such a world difference to Facebook showing this feed. Like, love, ha, wow. One of those reactions is always great for me. Otherwise, we are out of here. Didn't even get a chance to make a coffee before this because I've come straight off the back of coaching. Just rushed to the room next door to grab myself a pint of water. Right, if you are writing something, quickly write in hold so I don't disappear, but we are going to go in 15 seconds. Then we're going to have some lamb for lunch. Tikka chops. That's not my nickname either. Right, 10 seconds. Going off air. Thank you ever so much for joining us, everyone. Really, really, really do appreciate you joining us. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Next week, more questions, more of your questions I'll be answering. I'll be putting the link up on Instagram as well for people to ask any questions. Otherwise, I will see you in a week's time. Thank you, everybody. Take care, and I will see you soon.